To be honest.
To be honest.
To be honest.
To be honest.
Actually, to be honest.
To be honest.
TBH.
TBH.
To be honest. Actually, to be honest. Hi guys, welcome to episode 2. I hope everyone had a beautiful week. Episode 1 was on medical emergencies, how to respond, how to call 000, CPR, doctors, ABCs, all of that jazz. And today's episode is an anatomy episode on the 11 systems of the human body. 11 systems sounds like so many, but we are going to be doing an overview of all the systems, the organs involved, and how you can better take care of your systems. And I feel like this is a really relevant episode, even though we think we have an understanding of all the organs in our body and what they are. I was having coffee with a friend the other day and she was looking forward to this episode when we were talking about the podcast and all of this. She was saying that she was looking forward to it because she's obsessed with Love Island UK and can tell me all of the drama that's going on at the moment, but doesn't know what the function of her spleen is. And that's pretty valid. I feel like we can all get a little bit of anatomy education, a little refresher. And as much as you'd love to have Kieran inside of you, your spleen is actually inside of you. So let's get educated on the organs in our own body that are our own responsibility. So before we get into the episode, we always do a little baby pod. And this week's I'm really excited about because this is my new discovery of this year, and I'm so excited it has fixed my problem. So I think a lot of people have stomach problems, gut problems, and it's pretty common to have really irregular bowel motions and a disrupted diet as well. And a lot of people that I've been talking to about this are looking for ways to manage their diet and their water intake so that they can go to the bathroom. Such a pretty topic, but seriously, this is my tip. This is my favorite thing ever. The Twinings Metabolism Tea. I bought it at Coles. I think you can get it at Coles or Woolies. And it's like $13 for a pack of 20. Best thing if you want to regulate your bowels and get some better gut health. Okay, so there is zinc, peppermint, ginger, and cinnamon in this tea. And then I put a little bit of lemon juice in with it as well. So have this tea, hot water, on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning. Game changer. Seriously. Wake up, first thing I do, put the kettle on, have a stretch. Just as my morning routine now. But I wake up, put the kettle on, stretch while the kettle's boiling, have this tea with a little bit of lemon juice. I wait 30 minutes before I have my coffee or food or anything else. And that just sort of sits in there and brews, and it flushes and cleans your body so well. It's such a little thing that you can do to sort of help that regulating bowel movements. And it has seriously improved my mental health and my energy throughout the day because I don't have this sort of bloating, clogged feeling during the day, which is really awful. So this Metabolism Twinings tea, this is not sponsored. I just found it at Coles a couple months ago and I'm so excited because it actually helps. And it's just one little thing instead of having to change or disrupt my entire day. That is my little trick, my little tip. Get onto that tea if you're having gut problems. Try it out. Let me know how you go with it. But I love it. So have it on an empty stomach, hot tea, bit of lemon juice, and see if it fixes your stomach problems. Okay, so that takes me into the systems. Let's get into the episode. Okay, so the systems of the human body, there are 11. Some people think there's 12. It just depends how you read the musculoskeletal system. But if we go through the systems in this episode, by the end of it, you will actually have such a good understanding of the systems, but also little tips to help improve the system. So there are 11 of them, which sounds like a lot, but apparently they all fit in there. So we have the gastrointestinal system, the renal system, cardiovascular and respiratory system. We have the endocrine system, musculoskeletal, reproductive, nervous system, integumentary system, and lymphatic system. So the musculoskeletal system, some people consider them as the muscles and the bones as two separate, which they are, but together they make up the musculoskeletal system. So we are going to get into each of these systems in this episode. So make sure you're comfy or you've got, some productive domestic duties that you're getting up to while you're listening to this episode. So first system, which correlates nicely into my tip of the week, is our gastrointestinal system. What makes it up? Well, we have the mouth, we have our esophagus, which is our throat, then we have the stomach, the large intestine, the small intestine, and then the colon, which is broken up into 3 parts, and then the rectum. I guess the colon's not broken up, but it is described in 3 parts. So this is what makes up our GI tract, our gastrointestinal or digestive system. And I think it's a pretty common one because we use it every day, and it's really great to see a lot of talk on social media about how we can improve our gut health because, like I said, I feel like everyone's sort of struggling to get a handle on it. So the best thing when it comes to our gastrointestinal system is to understand that food is a huge regulator in our mood, energy, lifestyle, quality of life. And the types of food that we put in our bodies will impact the type of day that you have. And also the success of your day and your goals, and everything starts with having an appropriate diet. So making sure that if you have any sort of issues that you go to your GP and you get some tests done so that you can identify if you have a lactose intolerance, a celiac disease, whether you're gluten-free, whether you're actually allergic to blueberries, whatever the sort of concerns that you have regarding to your health, go get a GP and get some tests done, and so that you can rule any of that stuff out, because that's just a little thing that you can do to improve your gastrointestinal system. But also something that you can do every single day is making sure that you are having a fiber-rich diet, because when it comes to our gastrointestinal system, we are absorbing and digesting food products, your fruits and vegetables, which are high in fiber and are easily digested. So if you're someone who's bloating a lot, feels that pain and can't go to the bathroom regularly, then maybe you haven't got enough fiber in your diet to break up those food products. And when you choose to have fast food, you're introducing more artificial products into your diet, which takes a lot longer, sometimes days, to fully digest. And that's then just sitting in your intestine for like days. Like, it's pretty gross. Like, don't get me wrong, I am fanging for a hash brown after I come off a night shift, but balancing that with really high fiber foods and not creating an entire diet around convenient food products, because it is really important that you're having as many home cooked meals that are high in fiber and low in artificial products so that your body can digest them and get rid of them quickly, because the stomach is also known as the second brain of the body. It is a huge regulator in our mood as well, and energy. So the other thing is what we have in the stomach and the intestines is absorption. And this is where in the stomach we absorb things like alcohol, whereas our food and our water and everything, our nutrients, is all absorbed in the large and small intestine. Water is predominantly absorbed in the large intestine, and your more like nutrient-rich food products are absorbed in the smaller intestine, and so on. So that's really important. There are a few little medications that we can really quickly touch on, and that is Movicol, Caloxil or Caloxil and Senna, and like a lactulose. And really quickly, to summarize these medications, you have Movicol, which helps pull water from your large intestine, actually flush out the system if you have experienced constipation. Then you also have Caloxil and Senna, which is a stool softener if you're having really hard stool. And then lactulose is something that sort of breaks down all the harder product in the stool and makes it really runny. So it can help pass things, but it's important to try and make your diet as fiber rich as possible so you don't have to rely on these medications and become dependent on taking a Movicol every day to get a regular bowel movement. So if you have any more questions about your diet, make sure that you get in touch with a nutritionist or a dietitian and try to make it a high fiber diet. And this nicely ties into our renal system, which is our kidneys, urine, bladder, all that jazz. And that refers to the filtering of our blood and waste product production such as urine. So lovely. So the renal system is made up of the following organs. We have the renal artery. That kind of correlates to water absorption in the large intestine, is absorbed into the bloodstream, flows down to our renal artery, which then takes the large blood volume down to our kidneys. We have 2 kidneys, and most people are born with 2. We only need one to sort of complete the function. They don't depend on each other. They both do the same thing, but one of them is kind of like a backup, because without your kidneys, you can't survive. Like, you need your kidneys to live, or you need the function of kidneys to live, because they filter your blood and they separate waste product and also sort of control that pH and reduce that acidity in the blood. So if you have a kidney failure or kidney injury, then you're going to require something called dialysis, which is essentially like an out-of-body kidney. You'll go to a clinic or a hospital, whether it's every day, weekly, or every 3 months, depending on your condition, and the blood is taken from your body, obviously similar to donating plasma. It's taken in a certain amount of volume, it's filtered through the dialysis unit, and then it comes back to your body nice and clean. It's just exactly how the kidneys would do it, but obviously an out-of-body medical device, and that's not ideal. So you become completely dependent on dialysis if you haven't got functioning kidneys. So it's really important to look after them and to have good cardiovascular health, which we will get into, and also drinking a lot of water to support our kidneys, because we kind of need them, and you really don't want to end up on dialysis because it's just another risk factor. So that's the renal artery filtering into our kidneys, which then separates the waste product and the clean blood. It filters the clean blood back through to the body, and it sends the waste product down the ureter or ureter, however you pronounce it, the ureter, which is like a hose, 2 hoses from the kidneys that come down into the bladder, and that's like our tank. And then from the bladder, there is another hose called the urethra, which goes all the way to the exit portal via the tip of the penis or the vagina, which that is kind of like when we talk about our exit portals, that is where we are able to void the urine through the urethra. A tip for keeping the renal system happy and healthy is drinking plenty of water, because essentially, if we were to quickly discuss dehydration, when you are dehydrated, you obviously have a lower blood volume in your body, and your bladder can hold, it's kind of varies per person, but 300 mils roughly before you need to void. And if you are dehydrated, your kidneys aren't going to stop working. They're going to keep filtering the blood, and you're going to slowly start to have that buildup of urine, but it's going to be over a longer period of time. So that urine volume is sitting in the bladder for a longer time before you realize that you need to do a wee. So if you are, say, having like a glass of water, or if you're someone who just drinks coffee and doesn't actually drink water by itself, you might only be getting 200 mils in a day in your coffee, and then that sort of volume is sitting in your bladder and building up, and the longer it sits there, the more acidic it becomes, and the darker it becomes in color. Sorry, I'm having a seizure. The longer it's sitting in your bladder, the higher your risk of developing an infection. So you want to be able to flush that renal system as regularly as possible, doing lots of wees and drinking at least 2 liters of water a day, so that your blood volume can be increased and you can filter plenty of waste product out of your bladder and reduce infection. So that's how you can support your renal system, by drinking lots of water and keeping it regularly flushed, because hydration is important for every part of your body, but it's a huge support to the renal system. So drink plenty of water. Okay, and moving on, we have the cardiovascular system. So I found a little sort of way of explaining it that really helps me and is something that I use at work and also in public health education. So when I talk about the cardiovascular system, I like to correlate it to the public transport system. So if you think of the public transport system, you have your bus stops, you have your trains, and then you have the vehicles themselves doing the commuting. And that kind of relates to our heart, all of our organs and all the stops along the way, and then also, the transport, the vehicles, which is our blood vessels. So the cardiovascular system is made up of the heart, arteries and veins, and then capillaries, which are just a smaller version of your veins, really. So that is how we're able to absorb nutrients and fluid around the body, transport all the oxygen, nutrients around the body, and also return waste products and everything. It's just constantly busy. It is the transport system of the human body. So if you think about your big public transport systems around the world, like Tokyo and London and New York, they function because there is so many people that use them, because they can rely on the systems. And if there's any sort of trouble or like your safety's ever compromised, there's really good surveillance and there's police that can get there pretty quickly to resolve any complications. So if you kind of relate that system to the cardiovascular system, and you think our sort of the riffraff, the dodgies on the train that make you uncomfortable, is kind of like when you make a poor diet decision, if you choose to smoke or vape, or if you are abusing drugs or alcohol, then you're kind of that's the riffraff on the public transport system. So if you think of your fingers and your toes, these are our peripherals, as sort of like the suburbs, and then the heart is kind of like where you work. That's the middle of the city. That's where everyone's going to be coming back to and commuting through the big train stop in the city. So if you are taking the bus every single day, and there's one day this kind of dodgy fella that gets on and he makes you really uncomfortable and he really disrupts your commute, eventually someone comes on and takes them in off the train or whatever, the bus, and you sort of go about your day. It's kind of made you uncomfortable and it's ruined your morning and your commute. Next day, it happens again, and happens again the next day, and the following weekend, and the following weekend. And all of a sudden, it's like every single time you get on public transport, there is something on the train, there is someone on the train, there's that riffraff that's just disrupting your commute, until eventually it's just too much effort to put yourself through that every single day and you just stop taking that train. Okay, that is kind of like what happens when you make those poor cardiovascular health decisions, those poor lifestyle decisions. You're introducing more riffraff onto your public transport system, and your body's going to eventually stop being able to commute that rich oxygenated blood all the way down to your toes, all the way out to your fingers, correctly to all of the organs and all of the effort that's required to transport them. If there is sort of this clotting, if there is this disease that's passing around and the health and integrity of the veins is starting to deteriorate, it's starting to get worse, then they are kind of just going to stop working. That effectiveness is going to reduce and it's not going to sort of be able to function correctly. And then you end up with ischemic heart disease, with heart attacks, and with many like cardiovascular health complications. So it's really important that when there are sort of these altering factors, things that you can decide not to do, like vape and smoke and abuse drugs and alcohol, and diet decisions you can make to sort of reduce your risk of ruining your own public transport system, then it's just, my advice is just don't make those decisions, because you know the risks, you know the complications. All that is doing is putting more pressure on our public health system to sort of support you and care for you when you've chosen to make these decisions throughout your life that is now impacting your health. So make good decisions and support our public health system, please, and thank you. Also nicely ties into the respiratory system, so we can touch on that one next. Our respiratory system is our nose, our mouth, then we have our trachea, which is sort of like the air channel or tunnel that goes down into our lungs, and in our lungs we have the bronchus, our bronchioles, and at the ends of it all we have our alveoli, not alveoli, not alveoli. That is where gas exchange occurs, and that is how we get oxygen in when we take a deep breath. It goes through the gas exchange process and we breathe out the carbon dioxide. And again, it's similar to the heart. This is another big stop on the public transport system. It's another train stop, because that is where the blood vessels are going to run the deoxygenated blood into the alveoli so that you can release that carbon dioxide. And when you take a deep breath in with the oxygen, that's going into the blood there in your alveoli, and it's picking it up, it's getting on the train, and it's going to go around your body and keep all of your organs happy and healthy. And when you have vapes and smoking, then, or even just like pollution in the air, then you're not able to have a healthy gas exchange. So you're actually getting less oxygen in every breath. And over a prolonged period of time, that is going to significantly reduce your abilities to have oxygen in your body at all of your organs. So that is how smoking and vaping can affect your cardiovascular and your respiratory health. So there's also the diaphragm, not to be forgotten, in the respiratory system. That is the muscle that is in charge of that inspiration and expiration by contracting and releasing. It sits sort of just below your rib cage up there. You can't really feel it, but it's somewhat palpable, sitting in between that sort of V shape of your ribs. My advice for respiratory system: breathing through your nose. This is my fact. This is my advice. Because when you breathe through your nose, not only is it a whole nother element with infection control, because you have little hairs in your nose that can collect dust and bacteria, but you also are humidifying the air, and you will have better gas exchange because the air that you're breathing in is warmer and it's expanding the alveoli and your blood vessels, and you have a larger surface area to consume more oxygen, as opposed to when you breathe in cold air through your mouth or in a colder environment, and that's actually constricting the blood vessels and you're not going to get as much oxygen in, which is why you're going to have easier breathing in Brisbane as opposed to Armidale in July, where you feel like you can't even take a deep breath. So breathing through your nose, especially at nighttime, can help with increasing oxygen, and yeah, you might even get a better sleep. All right, we're on to the endocrine system. We're doing well. The endocrine system is essentially, if you were to relate those two words, endocrine, hormone regulation. The endocrine system is made up of glands, hormones, and some organs. And essentially, top to bottom, we have 3 glands in our brain. Then we also have the thyroid gland, the thymus gland, the adrenal glands, and then the sort of organs that are involved are the pancreas, the kidneys, and the ovaries and testes. So the kidneys are a part of the renal system. We talked about that, but that's also the location of the adrenal glands. So that's sort of how they correlate. So the adrenal glands are part of the endocrine system, which are located on the kidneys, which are a part of the renal system. So that sort of summarizes everything involved in the endocrine system. But when we talk about that, we want to think regulating hormones. And if we're regulating the hormones properly, that's going to impact our metabolism, our reproduction, energy, sleep, stress, growth. What am I missing? Oh, most importantly, sex drive and mood. That is the sort of purpose of hormone regulation in the endocrine system. And my tip to look after your endocrine system is to manage your stress. Stress is the silent killer. There are some great books available on regulating stress and how important it is. But most importantly, and the sort of system that it impacts really heavily, is our endocrine system. So when you have that, that increase in adrenaline and that all the stress hormones that are released, that's kind of throwing out of balance that homeostatic endocrine environment with all those regulations of the hormones. So you want to try and get onto it. I know life's stressful, there's a lot going on, but try to find a way that helps you, a way to manage your stress. And if you need to, see a psychologist and reach out to people who have devoted their life to being able to manage people's stress. So I really recommend getting on top of your stress to support your endocrine system. Okay, we're on to the musculoskeletal system. This one is muscles and bones, the skeletal system and the muscle system. It makes sense. And essentially, we have 600 muscles and 206 bones in our body. 206? Yeah, 206. So the the function of the musculoskeletal system is to body movement and also protect our organs and our blood vessels in our body. So that's how it's really good. It's a lot better than you think. And it's how you can see a guy get absolutely wiped out watching the footy, and you're all just like watching like, oh, he's a goner, and he gets up and he's absolutely fine. Or they, they're in a lot of pain, but they go get a whole bunch of scans done and there's nothing broken or fractured. And they're told they're being a sook. And that's essentially because our muscles and bones do a really good job at protecting our organs and our blood vessels. I also think it's a really fascinating system because the fact that our muscles and bones can rip and tear and break and like reproduce cells to heal themselves is just really fascinating. And if you have to require support for that, you are also going to be familiar with getting a physiotherapist involved in the team, and also potentially an occupational therapist as well, so that you can get back to a baseline when it comes to body movement and daily function. My advice for supporting the musculoskeletal system is stretching every single day. Not going to lie, I don't do it every single day, but I try to do it every morning. My trigger is when I put the kettle on, because I'm going to stand there for a minute or whatever. Anyway, just do a few little stretches. Always get the hammies stretches and the sort of like your obliques, your side muscles as well, because that can sometimes cramp up and all of that jazz. But that's why Pilates is a really good exercise form because you're actually stretching and exercising muscles that you might not use every day, but you still require them to keep everything upright and everything protected and nice and strong. So stretch every day, maybe try some Pilates, and that's going to help you be like 100 years old and still walking around, running around with the great grandbabies. So yeah, stretch every day and look after your bones and muscles. Also, like, don't play rugby. That's one way if you want to break everything in your body. Just don't play rugby and that'll help. That'll help a lot. Okay, so the next system is our nervous system, which is made up of the brain, spinal cord, and nerves that run throughout our whole body. Okay, so let's use the example of like roasting marshmallows. So you're like having a fire at home or on a camping trip or whatever, and you're roasting your marshmallows and you go to pull it off the stick, but it's like still burnt on the outside and that hurts. So like, you burn yourself. And then that sort of touching it hot sends a signal back to the brain to don't touch the hot thing or it's going to cause harm. So your brain tells your musculoskeletal system to let go of the hot burnt marshmallow at the end of your stick. Then you have a memory, which is part of your brain, and that is, that's the brain's function. It's got an element and different lobes that work to regulate memories. Your body's going to remember, okay, that is something that's going to hurt me again. So the next time you go to make your s'more and you chuck your marshmallow back on the fire and you pull it off, unless you're a 16-year-old boy who is definitely not going to regulate that was hot the first time you touched it, you're going to wait a second, wait for it to cool down, and then take your marshmallow off the stick. So that's the nervous system, its function. It is a big responsibility and it is essentially the boss of the whole systems. So my tip for the nervous system is vitamin B and also sleep. Vitamin B is really good in sort of like the health of your nerves, also mood and energy. I've started taking vitamin B every day and it's just like a capsule from the pharmacy, and I've noticed an improvement. It's been about 2 weeks and I have really noticed that I have I have a peppier mood. Preppier? What's the word? I just have I have a lighter mood, and I'm also sleeping a lot better as well, and I feel like I have more energy every day. So vitamin B is really important for your nervous system, and also sleeping as well, which correlates back to stress. If you want to have really healthy brain function and energy every day, be able to do a good job at whatever you're doing, then you need to have good sleep so that you have the ability to have that brain function. So sleep and vitamin B for the nervous system. Next up, we have our reproductive system, there are 2 systems in the reproductive system. We have the female reproductive system, which is the uterus, the fallopian tubes, the cervix, and the vagina. And like we said, the ovaries are relating to our endocrine system because they're involved in hormone production. So we just have those organs involved in the female reproductive system. And then in the male reproductive system, we have the prostate gland, the seminal vessels, seminal? It's a weird word. Seminal vessels, the testicles, and the penis. And also the urethra is kind of location-wise in there as well, but function-wise, it's part of the renal system. So that is our reproductive system, and we obviously use those systems to reproduce. There's also IVF and all of that, but the natural way is considered that the female and male reproductive systems can create a baby. The sex ed chat, which will be a whole nother episode. But yes, that is essentially the vagina, and the cervix is where the baby grows and the baby exits through, and the penis is how the semen is able to actually enter the female reproductive system. So my tip for the reproductive systems is to firstly, kind of got 2 parts. Firstly, keep it clean, keep it nice and clean. Make sure that you have good genital hygiene, wash yourself, make sure it's nice and clean, use fresh underwear, and use safe bathrooms. And also, which is kind of like part B of that, which is kind of more important, is make sure that you're using protection when you are sleeping with someone who is not your partner and you don't know their sexual history. STIs can lead to infertility and so many other problems. So just use protection when you don't know their history, because, that's your body and you don't want to be contaminating yourself with someone else's germs just because you might be conscious of their experience or your experience. So if you are sleeping with someone who's not your partner, use protection. Contraception does not protect you from STIs and STDs. So that will be a whole nother episode, but make sure that if you want to look after your reproductive system and you want to make sure that you can have kids down the future, wear protection if you're not sleeping with a partner and keep it clean. So the integumentary system is about the skin. The largest organ in the human body is your skin, and there are 4 layers. It is used in the absorption of vitamin D, and most importantly, it's used in protection against foreign objects and bacteria that we just don't want to have on there. What stands between, your cat's tongue and your muscle, like raw muscle or raw blood vessels, is your skin. It's protecting you. It's keeping you nice and safe. So if you want to look after your integumentary system, make sure that you're washing it every single day, and also make sure that you are moisturizing, because if we have dry, scaly skin, it will break and it's going to be less effective because it can't do its job, because it's essentially drying out and dying off. So dead skin is dead skin, and that's an organ, like a visual organ, like you can see it. So if you can see your organ, then you should take even better care of the ones that you can see, as opposed to your heart and your lungs and your kidneys that you can't see. So you can tell when your skin is unhealthy. And so if it's dry, put moisturizer on it, look after it, keep it alive. And obviously we know that we can reproduce skin cells, but yeah, make sure that you're trying to protect it by wearing moisturizer. And following on from that, if you want to make it even better, wear moisturizer with an SPF 30 plus. Make sure that you are wearing sunscreen to protect your body. Statistically, the Cancer Council report that 2 out of 3 Australians will be diagnosed with a form of skin cancer during their life. 2 out of 3. So I have 2 other siblings. Statistically, one of us will develop a form of skin cancer in our life. 2,000 Australians die every year from skin cancer. So that's horrible statistics. And we can change that, because now that we're educated and we know how to fix it, we just have to put that into action by wearing sunscreen and reapplying sunscreen, even if we are inside, because we're still being exposed. Make sure that you're educating people and you're encouraging people to wear sunscreen and do it yourself. So that's really good. We are up to our very last system in the body, and that is the lymphatic system. So what is the lymphatic system? It's a bit random, to be honest, but it's got a big purpose. But we don't probably talk about it enough. It is essentially like the little lakes and creeks of your body. It's like these little, I don't know, what do we call them? Like rock pools. Like think of them like a little rock pool in your body. They're all over your body in different locations, and they collect the excess fluid that's sort of floating around, and they also collect germs and bacteria and viral kind of conditions and stuff that's floating around in our body. Before that bacteria or that viral agent can sort of attach itself onto another agent and become infectious and aggressive, our lymphatic system steps in as another form of our immune system to sort of like kill it, like pull it out of the blood system, kill it, get rid of it, and send it out as waste products. So it's another sort of line of defense. That's what we could call it. We could call it the military. It's like the military of our system, the lymphatic system. So we love the lymphatic system, and it's made up of our tonsils, our spleen, our lymph nodes, which are located under your arms. So there is a lymph node under both your arms. You have lymph nodes. You've got heaps of little ones around sort of the location of your neck and throat. You also have them either side of your groin. There's one under the popliteal, so under your knee. Yeah, that's all I can think of off the top of my head. But they're in most of your like nooks and crannies in the body. And they're like, they're another line of defense. They're another sort of way of protecting your body from foreign agents and keeping you healthy. So for example, if you're a kid who had your tonsils removed, which a lot of people do because you keep getting sick and they get swollen and you become really unwell, there are 2 parts of that. There is that element of they're getting so swollen and you're getting so unwell because of the infections that you're getting on your tonsils. So we have to remove them. Or you end up sort of removing another line of defense. So that's why you don't want to get them out too hastily. You don't want to be like, oh, I've got tonsillitis, I need to get them removed, because they are serving a purpose. They are there as another line of defense. But if they are making you sick for prolonged periods of time, or, they're occurring, like you're getting tonsillitis recurrently, then it may have to look at getting them removed. But they are part of the lymphatic system, which, like I said, is another line of defense for the body. And a tip for keeping your lymphatic system healthy is to move your body. Keep yourself active, because you don't want to get stagnant fluid in our body. A really good example of this is Michael, my boyfriend, he fractured his shoulder. He fractured his collarbone, and he spent 6 weeks in a sling. But over that time, he obviously was immobile in this position, and his lymph node under his armpit got really swollen, and his body became really run down. And because he couldn't wash that lymph node properly, he ended up brewing an infection under that armpit because he couldn't move it. Became very unwell and was rushed to emergency for an emergency drainage, and actually had to go under general anesthesia, and they had to drain all of the fluid that had pooled inside that lymph node because he'd been unwell and because he wasn't mobile under there. And it was really awful, and he was very, very sick and at risk of becoming septic. So you have to keep your pits and nooks clean. So when people say clean your pits, clean behind your knee, clean your neck, brush your teeth, that's because these are our infection prone areas. So yeah, keep your groin, knees, armpits, throat, keep them clean. Because that is our lymphatic system. And similar to our kidneys, how they filter the blood, we also have our spleen, which is another filter system for our blood. So what is the purpose of the spleen? To kind of relate back to the start of this episode, it is to sort of be there as another line of defense. It's like your tonsils inside your body, and you do need them for your immune system. Alrighty. Okay, guys, that is the 11 systems of the human body. In summary, we have our gastrointestinal system, and my tip and advice there is to eat high fiber foods. We have the renal system, and my advice is to drink lots of fluids every day to support your kidneys and your urine output. Then we have our cardiovascular system. We have to make sure that we are not making poor lifestyle decisions so that we are not disrupting our public transport systems. And then we have the respiratory system, and we want to make sure that we are breathing through our nose as much as we can to humidify that air and have better oxygen exchange. Then we've got the endocrine system. We want to make sure that we are looking after it by reducing our stress and getting help if we find that we are overstressed and can't manage. Then we have the musculoskeletal system. We're going to stretch every day to support ourselves and the longevity of our muscles and our muscle support. Then we have the reproductive system, and we are going to keep it clean and wrap it up if you don't know someone's sexual health history. We have the nervous system next, and that one we are going to support by getting good sleep and having lots of vitamin B. And then the integumentary system, we're going to keep our bodies clean, wear lots of moisturizer, and also protect our bodies by wearing sunscreen every single day, even if we work inside. And finally, to wrap up the 11 systems, we have the lymphatic system, which is another line of defense for our immune system. And we're going to support it by keeping our body fit and active and moving around so that we don't have stagnant fluid, and also just making sure that we're getting fresh air as well to support our own energy and our mood and everything. So that is the 11 systems. Thank you so much for sticking around and learning about them, and be proud of yourself because you've just revised all your anatomy and you can now tell your friends what the function of your spleen is. So stay well, and I'm looking forward to next week's episode with you guys. We have some interview episodes coming up. If there's anything that you want us to talk about in the podcast, please message us on social media and get in touch. I'll be having a questionnaire on my Instagram on my story, so you'll be able to ask any questions and we can cover them in the podcast episodes. So all the best and have a beautiful week and stay well.